The whole world now is behind the vaccination, and the two important names which I think every person in the world is now aware of is one is the Pfizer and the Moderna. But this Pfizer and Moderna, the whole vaccination is based on the mRNA, and now the whole world has to know who actually is behind this mRNA. I know it is this Pfizer and Moderna. They are the companies which manufacture the vaccine based on along with those ingredients essential for it. But the most important thing is the mRNA. So how this mRNA came into existence and who discovered the mRNA? That is what is the most important aspect, which I am going to explain in this particular video. One important person which the world can never afford to forget or ignore, that is Dr. Katalin Kariko. Dr. Katalin Kariko, she was an Hungarian born, settled in US. She was doing a research on mRNA because see, one thing we need to know that the body is synthesizing hundreds and thousands of proteins every day, and because of these proteins we are alive. So for any functioning of the human body, let it be or the movement, the taste, the digestion, or the perception, or the vision, or any of these processes which are happening in the body, or in a simple terms, the life in the body is existing because of these proteins which are synthesized. And how these proteins are synthesized is because they are synthesized based on the messages being delivered from the DNA to the cells, and these messages are delivered in the form that is called as mRNA, that is messenger RNA. This messenger RNA delivers the message to the particular cell to synthesize a particular protein which is essential for the functioning of that particular organ. This is the whole basis of this particular synthesis of proteins, and the instructions to develop that particular protein is entirely lying with the messenger RNA, which has been delivered from the DNA of that is the genetic code of an individual. So similarly, for any infections, when it happens to any human being, the antibodies are naturally synthesized in himself. So that is the cell synthesized and defense mechanism to fight against those antibodies or the antigens or any foreign infections, maybe a bacteria, a virus or a fungus. And to fight against this, the cells have been taught how to fight those infections. And who teaches them to fight that infection? The genetic code of any human being, through the messenger RNA to the particular antibodies which develops the antibodies to fight against that particular. This is what is the normal mechanism in any human body. So this Dr. Katalin Kariko, so she thought, why instead of the naturally available mRNA protein, why don't we synthesize certain instructions to the cells to create certain proteins which can fight the cancer cells or fight or any infections, or we can stimulate the antibodies based on the instructions which we give, that is artificially created mRNA, which can be induced inside a human body, that can stimulate the antibodies to fight against the infection. This was her concept. So that she started a research in 1990 in the University of Pennsylvania. So it so happened, but our experiment failed. And over a period of years, she tried on the mice, she tried on some animals, but it continued to fail because the mRNA which she synthesized in the laboratory, that generated a spike of antibodies which destroyed the mRNA itself. And that was detrimental to the life of the animal. At the same time, the whole synthetic product which she used was rendered useless. So by this, again she went on, she didn't stop until that. She went on trying with the research. But for 5 years until 1995, she did try, but she was not successful. And unfortunately, she was supposed to be elevated to a professorship based on her research, but she was demoted. She was never given a promotion. Even she was demoted, that means her cadre was downgraded because she failed in her research. But she never gave up. But she was very confident that her mRNA project will definitely make a revolution in the world one day. But she went on applying for grants, for funding, but none funded her. Nobody gave her grants, including her own university. So it was but at the time of 1995, she also developed a cancer. And at the same time, her husband was not able to get a visa to come to US because the visa issue, he was held up in Hungary. So she was all alone with enduring cancer. At the same time, a failed research. And the fourth thing is she has been demoted. But despite all this, she never gave up because she was very confident that this particular mRNA research which she has done, it's going to make a revolution in this world. She was supported by one of her long-term friend in Penn, Germany, Dr. Weissman. He was an immunologist. Of course, he had a PhD degree. He was a scholar. He got it from Boston University, US. So he joined with her, and both together, Dr. Katalin Kariko and Dr. Weissman, together, the hurdle which Dr. Katalin had, that her synthetic mRNA was triggering abnormal immune response. So for that, they together made modifications in the mRNA which Dr. Kariko has synthesized. See, as such, her mRNA had contained 4 nucleosides. So one of the nucleosides, the amino acid sequencing was acting like a snap. So that was stimulating an abnormal antibody response. So Dr. Weissman, he corrected that abnormality and re-injected the same synthetic mRNA in the cells, and that was a success. So the success was like eating 2 birds at a time. That is, one is the success of mRNA, at the same time the success of the mRNA stimulating the required antibodies. So these 2 successes was being felt and experienced across the world today. That was the origin of the mRNA vaccine. Indeed, the world should be thankful, and we can never ever forget the contribution did by Dr. Katalin Kariko and Dr. Weissman. They together now are, we can say, the fathers of the mRNA vaccine. So later on, of course, Dr. Katalin Kariko and Dr. Weissman, the Weissman in Germany joined with the BioNTech company, and they started with the mRNA vaccine. Similarly, Dr. Katalin Kariko with the Moderna company. So all together now they are producing millions of vaccines, saving millions of lives across the world.